Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. First up for D&D today, we have the mug, because it seemed appropriate to have a challenge rating 0 mug for the topic that we were talking about today. And inside of it, we have some of the honey lemon ginseng from Celestial Seasonings. This one is really good. It's a good green tea. Need a little bit of a pick-me-up right now. So it's a nice little sort of lighter, rich kind of tea, but not really like too heavy or too fruity or anything like that. I'm a fan. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's get into what we are talking about today. 9th level spells. Not everybody gets to play with them. Not everybody gets to really do a whole lot with them, but by God, they're a lot of fun. So we're going to go through what I believe are the 5 best 9th level spells, regardless of class, regardless of anything like that. We're just going to sort of run through them, talk a little bit about what they do and why they are so dang good. However, the reality of a 9th level spell is that for the most part, it's hard to go wrong with your 9th level spell. Just because these are so good doesn't mean that, the other ones are not. Quite frankly, almost every single one of them is incredible. There are several on this list that I was just barely edging out because I was realizing that these other ones might just be a little bit better. And so, don't get me wrong. I really love the top level spells. And honestly, they're a really fun thing for DMs to toss to players. If you're playing a game that goes up to level 12 or something like that, tossing the ability to cast one of these 9th level spells is a really sort of fun way to give your players essentially the nuclear codes to just go off with at any point that they think is the best point to do so. So all that said, all that prefacing, let's go ahead, let's dive in. At number 5 on my list here, I have the spell. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. Prismatic Wall. This thing is a monster. This thing is absolutely brutal. And one of the best things about it is the fact that it does not require concentration. You heard that right. 9th level spell doesn't require concentration. Lasts for 10 minutes. 10 whole minutes. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Prismatic Wall, allow me to regale you with a little bit of what it does. I'm going to have to pull this one up because, quite frankly, there's too much for me to be able to write down and be able to understand in my notes as I go through it here. This thing is 90 feet long, 30 feet high, and an inch thick, or it can be a sphere up to 30 feet in diameter, centered on a point that you choose within range. It remains in place for the duration. Again, 10 minutes long, no concentration, takes 1 action to cast. If it passes through a space that is occupied by a creature, the spell fails and your action and the slot are gone. So you got to make sure that you are not doing that if you are putting up this spell. It sheds bright light out to a range of 100 feet and dim light for an additional 100 feet. That's 200 feet of visibility. And you and creatures that you designated time when you cast the spell can pass through it and remain near it without a problem. Anybody else that moves within 20 feet of it or starts its turn there has to succeed on a Constitution saving throw or become blinded for a minute. There are 7 different layers in this wall. Each of them is a different color. When a creature attempts to pass through or reach through the wall, it does so 1 layer at a time and resolving that effect before it moves on to the next one. Realistically, the only people that are going to survive getting through this are going to be anyone with evasion. That is your rogue and your monks. And I don't mean Ring of Evasion. I mean full-blown evasion. Because as you reach or pass through a layer, you have to make a dex save or be affected by the layer properties. The wall can be destroyed 1 layer at a time in order from red to violet by means specific to each of those layers, which means you would have to kind of know what each of them requires. Once it's destroyed, it remains destroyed as long as the spell continues. Anti-magic field has no effect, and dispel magic can only affect the very last layer. So, first up, the red layer. Creature takes 10d6 fire damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. While that layer is in place, non-magical ranged attacks can't pass through the wall. Layer can be destroyed by dealing at least 25 cold damage to it. Second layer, the orange layer. 10d6 acid damage on a failed save, or half as much as on a successful one. While it's in place, magical ranged attacks can't pass through the wall. That layer is destroyed by using a strong wind. Yellow, number 3. Creature takes 10d6 lightning damage on a failed save, has as much on a successful one, can be destroyed by dealing at least 60 force damage to it. Fourth layer, green layer. 10d6 poison damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. A pass wall spell or another spell of equal or greater level that can open a portal on a solid surface destroys that layer. 5th layer, blue layer. Creature takes 10d6 cold damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. Can be destroyed by dealing 25 fire damage to it. 6th, indigo. On a failed save, creature is restrained, and it must make a con save at the end of each of its turns. If it successfully saves 3 times, the spell ends. If it fails to save 3 times, it permanently turns to stone and is subjected to the petrified condition. Successes and failures don't need to be consecutive. Keep track of both until the creature collects 3 of a kind. While it's in place, spells can't be cast through the wall. Layers destroyed by a bright light shed by daylight or similar spell of equal or higher level. And finally, 7th, violet. On a failed save, creature is blinded. You must then make a wisdom saving throw at the start of your next turn. A successful save ends the blindness. If it fails to save, the creature is transported to another plane of the GM's choosing and is no longer blinded. Typically, the creature is on a plane. If it is on a plane that isn't its home plane, it goes to its home plane. While other creatures are cast into the astral or ethereal planes. This layer is destroyed by dispel magic or similar spell of equal or higher level that can end spells and magical effects. So, I don't know that I need to really sort of get into all of the reason that that's just phenomenal, but it's phenomenal, right? You have 7 opportunities to just mess with the people coming through. And if they can't make every single one of those dexterity saves, they're going to get stopped somewhere along the way and start dealing with that. Now, there is nothing in there necessarily that talks about what happens if you get stuck halfway through. Presumably, you can back out if you need to, or your best bet is to just keep forcing your way through. It's kind of up to the DM ultimately. But Prismatic Wall, top-notch spell. Also the longest one on this list by like a pretty significant margin. Kind of. But it is so good. It should be one that you have packed in your bag if you are any kind of abjurative spellcaster, or you are looking to lock somebody in place, honestly. Because if you lock somebody inside of that sphere, they're stuck there until they can either destroy all the layers or pass through it. And they might just be straight up blinded while they're inside of it. So, a really, really fantastic spell. Next up is Foresight at number 4. Foresight. And I will go ahead and I will say ahead of time, I don't have invulnerability on this list. You might be asking why. Immunity to all damage seems pretty dang good, and you'd be correct. But invulnerability does not prevent you from dying to effects that just cause death. That means that Power Word Kill can just straight up kill you still if you are invulnerable, because you're just invulnerable to damage. You are not invulnerable to things that would kill you outright. You could be attacked by a bunch of shadows, and you could die from their strength drain. So the fact that there are so many like low-level ways around it means that I didn't put it on this list. But Foresight, on the other hand, takes a minute to cast. It's definitely a prep spell, but it lasts for 8 hours. That is some of the biggest bang for your buck you're going to get from your 9th level spell. And flat out, the fact that it gives you advantage on everything that you do, because you can see like 2 seconds into the future, and everything that is happening to you has disadvantage. I mean, come on, right? Like, how are you going to argue against that? It's so good. It's so phenomenally good. And honestly, I pack it as often as I can if I am going to be playing a character that has access to it, because I love playing a support caster, and there's really only one other spell that is on this list that is out there, period, really, that I take and use instead of Foresight. But Foresight is really, really great if you are trying to move through something, if you have somebody that is trying to move through something, or you know that somebody is going to be on the front lines or something like that. Really great for like a rogue, get sneak attack every single round, pretty much no matter what. Really great for a barbarian, dump in those crits. Really great for paladins, dump in those crit smites, anything like that. It's really, really fantastic. Highly recommend packing that one. Up next, number 3, Meteor Swarm. This one is the the most damaging spell in the game, depending on how you look at it. The way I look at it, it is the most damaging spell in the game. It is 20d6 fire damage and 20d6 bludgeoning damage as you rip 4 meteors from the sky and send them crashing down anywhere within a mile of you. So, assuming you are not stacking the meteors on top of each other, because you can only be affected by 1 meteor at a time, you are dealing a grand total of, hang on, let's do that math real quick, 160 d6 damage to stuff. It is how you wipe out an entire city. It is how you wipe out entire parties. It is how you just like send everybody onto their heels. The average of that is a ludicrous amount of damage. It is something like 140 damage per meteor is your average. And the fact that that is your average from that means you're going to be hitting that pretty often because you're rolling 40d6 in damage. Now, your monks and your rogues are going to be able to evade it as it is a dexterity saving throw. However, the fact that you can level entire square miles with this spell make it so potent. It deals the most damage at once. Granted, Prismatic Wall will deal more to a single creature, but Meteor Swarm is simply the best spell for mass destruction. If you are coming in and you are raining down literal hellfire sometimes on some kind of an enemy's keep or something like that, Meteor Swarm is what you want to have because it can entirely decimate the battlefield. It is so fantastic to keep packed in your back pocket. Moving on to number 2. This one shouldn't surprise anybody if you know anything about me, but the only thing that might surprise you is that it's falling to number 2 instead of number 1. Number 2 is Mass Heal. Mass Heal, the best healing spell in the game, in my opinion, the second best spell in the game, period. Arguably the best, because Mass Heal is the spell that affects the most hit points in general, like across the board. Granted, a top level Meteor Swarm, like maxed out damage, will do more damage than Mass Heal can heal if you count all 4 of the meteors together. But Mass Heal restores 700 hit points to, how many is it? Let's see here. Mass Heal, up to 700 hit points. Any number of creatures that you can see within range, which is 60 feet. It's an action to cast. It also cures all of those creatures of diseases, any effects making them blind or deafened, and it has no effect on undead or constructs. This is the reset that gets your party back in the fight. Flat out. It is the thing that can make or break a fight. If you are saving your 9th level spell slot for this, you are not doing it wrong. Because Mass Heal, when everybody is down, everybody is laying on their deathbeds there, and you pop a Mass Heal and everybody comes back up to full health, there is nothing that will stop your party at that point. They effectively have doubled the amount of total hit points. Their hit point pool is doubled. For barbarians and druids, that means that you get all kinds of extra stuff. This is so fantastic. It can be divvied up however you need. So if you've got somebody who's down 20 and somebody's down 200, you can dump all 200 into that person, top off the other person, have some left over for anybody else that needs it. This thing is potent. Granted, you honestly likely won't even need the full 700 at any point, because I want to say that the average hit points for a D&D character when they hit level 17, which is when you get 9th level spells, is closer to like 150. And if you're in a party of 4, that's putting you at 600 right there for like total across everybody. Granted, there will be some higher and some lower, but Mass Heal, man. Get it, take it, use it. It's so good. Honorable mention before we get to the last one here. Time Stop is a phenomenal spell. It has a lot of really fantastic uses. It is a generalized use spell. It's really great if you are setting something up or if you need to take a minute in the middle of battle to go ahead and do some stuff. However, it is really only good for setup of anything. As soon as you affect other things with it, Time Stop ends. And that's not great, but it does mean that you can stack up a few things that are going to be beneficial for you as you go through here. Granted, it's one of those spells that is kind of, I love it, but I also kind of don't love it at the same time, because it doesn't require concentration, so you can set up a concentration spell or something like that. But as soon as you affect a creature that isn't you, it ends. And so that to me makes it not fall onto this list, because you can't heal everybody, you can't do a bunch of stuff like that. You have to set up things that really only affect you. But with that being our honorable mention, we come to the number 1 spell on this list. It's not a surprise to anybody. It shouldn't be, at least. If it is, I'm sorry that you're being surprised by it. I highly recommend you go read it. It's Wish. I mean, the opening line of Wish is the mightiest spell a mortal creature can cast. I know it's a boring answer for number 1, but it is what it is. I think it's a boring answer. I wish it was something else. But at the end of the day, Wish is just that good. You can use this spell to duplicate any spell of 8th level or lower that you want to. You don't need to meet any requirements in that spell, including components. It just takes effect. Alternatively, you can do a bunch of different stuff. Create on an object of up to 25,000 gold in value that isn't a magic item. And it can't be any bigger than 300 feet in any dimension. You can allow up to 20 creatures that you can see regain all of their hit points and all of the effects on them as described in the Greater Restoration spell. It's a little bit better than Mass Heal in that case. You grant 10 creatures resistance to a damage type of your choice. 10 creatures gain immunity to a single spell or other magical effect for 8 hours. So you could make yourself and your companions immune to a specific like creature attack. You could make it immune to dragon breath, something like that. You can undo a single recent event by forcing a reroll of any roll made within the last round, including on your turn. Reality reshapes itself to accommodate the new result, which means a lot of work for the DM, but you can undo something that happened in the last round. You could undo a save. You could undo a critical hit, failed saving throw, including like a death saving throw. If it's the last death save, you can force that reroll if you want to. Honestly, you can force it to be made with advantage or disadvantage, your choice. And then you choose which of the rolls to use. It's really good. And then past that, the last couple of paragraphs are, you might be able to do some more stuff. However, there's a lot of bad stuff that could happen with it. And the reason that Wish has a drawback here is really that you have the ability to never be able to cast Wish again. Because it could fail. If you try to create an effect that is not something that is just replicating another spell, there's a 33% chance you can never cast Wish again, ever again. In addition, if you use it to create something that isn't another spell effect, so any of those other effects that are listed out directly in the spell, sorry, I'm reading again. Any of the effects that are not listed, or that are listed in that spell, included on this list, you take 1d10 necrotic damage per level of other spells that you are casting. So you cast Wish, you do something that isn't just recreating another spell, and then you cast a second level spell, you take 2d10 necrotic damage because it's a second level spell. Damage can't be reduced or prevented in any way. In addition, as soon as that happens, your strength score drops to 3 if it isn't already 3 or lower for up to 8 days, 2d4 days. For each of those days that you spend resting and doing nothing other than light activity, your recovery time reduces by 2 days. And then, again, there's a chance that you could never, ever cast the spell again. It is a high-risk thing to do something that is not that. And it has to be sort of your last ditch, or you can't be doing something else that's big if you are going to be casting Wish for something that isn't just recreating a spell. But the fact that you can recreate any spell in the game just outright is incredible. And so those are my 5 best 9th level spells. Again, in order: 5 Prismatic Wall, 4 Foresight, 3 Meteor Swarm, 2 Mass Heal, and 1 Wish. If you don't know about some of these, check them out. They're not new spells necessarily, but they are really, really, really good. Check out more 9th level spells. It's fun to just play around in that top end of D&D every once in a while and just sort of see what you can find. But that is everything I have to talk to you guys about on that. Moving right along to the shows that we have coming out today. It is, of course, Wednesday, which means that in no particular order, we don't have Dimension 20. They're not back yet, but we have Knocked Prone, Venture Maidens, Trials and Trebuchets, and Roll Out. Go check them out. Let them know that I sent you, because again, someday somebody's going to say something to me about it, and I'm going to think that it's funny. But until then, I'm going to keep asking you guys to do so. Yeah, that is everything I have to talk to you guys about. So, thank you so very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it, and thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the episode description. And yeah, that is all that I have for you guys. I realized that I misplaced the D20 that I had to tap at the camera at the end here. But I found it, don't worry. So with all that said, guys, don't forget, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.